Sounds like a fire engine. So there was a great fire at these buildings here, right where we're standing, sitting. The people come out to watch, as they did back in the day, and the firemen were up on the ledge in between two of the buildings. A wall caved in, and all I could see was a sheet of flames going up in the air. But when the smoke cleared, the firemen were still safe there standing on the ledge with pouring their fire hoses into the blaze. So at that time, commercial stores included a place where people stored their furs back when people wore fur coats. So that was that particular business. But I just bring this up because I think history is really fun. And it's so great that we have a kind of a hallowed ground here. The fact that Ann Dudley really did come and visit here, came to parties here, dinners, dances, and the fact that former Governor and Mayor Phil Bredesen made this what he called a pocket park, and right next to the public library that he called his greatest achievement while Mayor of Tennessee is really something to celebrate. And I know we'll be hearing more about the library in just a moment. So I hope you could hear me okay, and there's plenty more where that came from, believe me. So I recommend Ridley Will's books. There's one here called Nashville Streets and Their Names. Tells all about the street names of Nashville. There's one called Lest We Forget, about the businesses of Nashville. Companies like Stife Jewelry and things that were right across the street here. Samuel L. Watkins had his home on the corner, and you should just read about it. It's amazing. And here's one from Ann Dudley's best friend at one time, Maria Davies. It's called 7x7. She writes about her life in 7-year segments. She describes how she called her Annie Dallas Dudley was brought in to form the National Equal Suffrage League. And she said, someday I hope there will be a marker to honor this. So here we are, a marker. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, or is it still morning? Thank you so much for joining us today as we honor and celebrate one of the most important moments in our nation's history. To think that 100 years ago, and the role that this state played in the passage of the 19th Amendment and giving women the right to vote is pretty tremendous. I'm Dee Patel. I'm the managing director of the historic Hermitage Hotel, and I too often imagine the events that took place on this block 100 years ago. And to be standing in this glorious park today in the heart of downtown, doesn't it feel amazing? Yes. I'd like to also thank the Historical Capitol Corridor Foundation for showing us what this park could be and can be. And today we welcome this historic marker as an important addition to our park. I'd like to acknowledge and thank the Mayor's Office, Councilman Freddie O'Connell, Metro Parks, Metro Historical Commission, and the Hermitage Hotel historian Tom Vikstrom, who researched and wrote the content for this marker. A very special thank you to the Women's Suffrage Centennial Commission that sponsored this marker. The commission was created by an act of Congress to coordinate nationwide programs, partnerships, and events to help celebrate the 100th anniversary of women's right to vote. Members of the commission visited us last November from Washington, D.C., and enjoyed taking a peek at the marker, and their hearts were filled with joy to know that they played a special part in our city's celebration. So now I'd like to turn it over and welcome Deputy Mayor Brenda Haywood and recognize her few comments. Thank you.
First of all, I want you to know that I bring you greetings from the office of our mayor, which is, of course, Mayor Cooper. And I'm saddened by the fact that he's unable to be here, but I find it very joyous that I could stand in his, not in his shoes, but to stand before you today to bring you a few words, and I'm very, very honored. At this time, I'd like to say the significance of Nashville in the ratification of the 19th Amendment is, of course, undeniable. Often referred to as the third house during the 1920 suffrage debate, the Hermitage Hotel found itself to be the epicenter of the debate. Pro-suffrage activists would lobby state representatives at this famed hotel. The 8th floor of the hotel, known at that time as the Jack Daniels Room, was used by pro-suffrage operatives to entice state representatives to vote in their favor, all while sipping the favorite distilled drink of Nashville, Tennessee. American history is all over Nashville, and I think each of you would attest to that. However, right here in this square block, Nashville played a pivotal role in her history. The pro-suffrage activism took place right here where we stand today and is directly responsible for women all over this great nation being granted the right, yes, to vote. The activism that took place right here gave women all over America the right to vote and, of course, to be heard. I want you to know this is very important to me. I'm a lady of in May I turned 70 years old. The activism that took place right here made it possible for a young black young lady growing up right here in Nashville at the peak of racism and segregation to be the first to integrate Stratford High School at that time in 1963. Oh, that's so sweet. Wow. The opportunity to integrate. I'm just humbled by that. So on this day, based on what happened on that day, I stand here not only as your first black deputy mayor, but as your first female deputy mayor of Nashville, Tennessee. I'd like to thank the Women's Suffrage Centennial Commission in Washington, D.C. for the gift of this wonderful marker. And for that, I say thank you for listening, and may God continue to bless each and every one of you richly.
Check my watch. It is still good morning, everyone. I just want to echo the sentiments of all the speakers before me. My name is Jessica Reeves, and I administer the Historical Markers Program for the Metro Historical Commission. It's one of the absolute favorite parts of my job, is coming out and celebrating with all of people just like you from across the county for all of these wonderful historical markers. So I want to thank again the Women's Suffrage Centennial Commission. We could not have done this marker without their financial support. The Metro Historical Commission, of course, for approving this marker. Dee Patel, the Hermitage Hotel, and especially Tom Vikstrom. Tom, I want to thank you for thanking me whenever you spoke for my help, but it was really you. I can't even see you. There you are. You are the one who did the research and came with the initial text, and I just had to finesse it into place. So it was all you. So thank you so much for that. And also our county historian, Dr. Carol Busey. I don't think she could be here with us today, but at the very last minute when we wanted to add a few more names to the marker, she was the one who came in and helped us do that research and helped us add some names. So I hope everyone, even if you know the story of the women's suffrage movement in Nashville, hopefully you'll come away with a few new things that you're learning from this marker. So the marker program here in Metro started in 1968. It's the longest running program of the Historical Commission, and we have over 230 historical markers now all across the county. And these are place-based markers that commemorate people or places or events, so that, you know, decades or however long, a century later, people can come to the exact spot long after the people have died or the buildings have come down, as Tom talked to us about earlier, or the event is long past, and you can stand in the exact place where history happened, and know that you're part of that as well. So I want to thank all of you for being here, being part of history with us today as we unveil this marker. And we're so glad to have this marker join the other suffrage markers that we have. There are now 4 markers, historical markers, both metro and state markers. I'm sure you all have seen the one just around the corner behind the Hermitage Hotel, the Votes for Women marker. But then there are 2 others I hope you will be able to go out and see. The Women's Suffrage Rallies marker in Centennial Park. And of course, there is a state marker there as well for Ann Dallas Dudley. So thank you all again so much, and I will turn it over to Kent. Yes, thank you.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Kent Oliver, and it's my privilege to be director of the Nashville Public Library. And it's a privilege to be with you here today. I have to say, I'd like to thank Deputy Mayor Haywood, Tom Bickstrom for his wonderful comments, and members of the Metro Council. I see a few of you out there, so thank you all for being with us today. First of all, I have to tell you, as somebody who has watched the park from across the street, it's a joy to see how the park's developed and transformed itself. And I was just thinking, going off script here a little bit, but listening to Tom, and having an event like this in this space would have been very difficult even a year and a half, a year ago. And to see all of you here and enjoying this space is just wonderful. But the park has long been associated with the Nashville Public Library's main library in the hearts and minds of Nashvillians. Obviously, we're right across the street here from the main library that turned 20 years old this year. Nashville itself is a city rich with history. And today, I'd like to extend to you an opportunity to explore another piece of that history. Last year, along with our community partners, Jeannie Nelson, Margaret Bem, and Julie Mosley, we opened the Votes for Women room in our main library. This permanent space now welcomes visitors to explore the history and ongoing legacy of the 19th Amendment. And as you know, that vote took place right here in Nashville to ratify the 19th Amendment on August 18th, 1920. And within the Votes for Women space, you'll have the opportunity to meet some key figures in that Votes for Women struggle. And they include early suffragists such as Ida B. Wells, Lucy Burns, Margaret Sanger, to some modern-day trendsetters such as Justice Sonia Sotomayor, Vice President Kamala Harris, Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn, and near and dear to many of us in Music City, the late Senator Thelma Harper. You'll get to see their struggles and their triumphs alive through videos, pictures, and books, of course. I think it's important to note that in addition to the images you'll see and the books you'll find, that the Votes for Women is more than just that, but it's an idea lab. It's supposed to talk about and sustain us to engage in the struggle for equal rights today. It's a space that brings our community together to draw inspiration from the brave women and, yes, men who fought for women's rights more than a century ago. It's a space to discuss the power of voting, the power of women, and actually the power of power itself. However, I have to say, at its heart, It's a space to chart a course for a truly equal society that we all want to achieve. And so, once we've completed our event down here today in this beautiful space, I want to personally invite you to go across the street, go up to the second floor in the Special Collections area, and experience the Votes for Women room. I think you'll be astounded at what you find. Thank you for your time today, and thank you again for coming out.
Okay, so I think we would like to invite all of our speakers that we had today to come on up to unveil the monument or the marker itself.
Congratulations, everyone, on the marker. Another one in your district.
Appreciate it. I know. Look at you. I want to hug. This is my favorite. Look.